It is a pleasure to greet you live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. The International Training Center is proud to bring to you this important multinational program, which today reaches Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, and the United States of America. Welcome all. We would like to thank Keystone Communications, Telecomunicaciones de México, PanamSat, and BrazilSat for their satellite linkage services, which allows us to come to all of you directly through the outreach of today's telecommunications. Welcome to the program, the Global Leadership Challenge, Change and Accountability, the fifth video conference of our 1997 series, Principles for World-Class Performance. I am Armando Osorio, your moderator for this program. Today's program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. There is no doubt that all of our organizations today should strive to reach a level of world-class global competitiveness if we want to succeed and survive in the new global market. This has presented a global leadership challenge in our workplaces. Too often, we are faced with uncompleted plans, unmet budgets, unexecuted strategies, perplexed clients, and duplicity of work. Are people truly committed to organizational goals? Is technology destroying our responsibility at work? Our guest experts will analyze these reflections, which are crucial to building global leadership and accountability in our organizations during these times of constant change. It is a pleasure to introduce to you today's expert speakers, Mr. Stan Schultz and Mr. Tom Hinton. Mr. Schultz is a business consultant and entrepreneur. For many years, he has been active in the U.S. and foreign markets as a marketeer, distributor, and manufacturer, particularly in Latin America, where he maintains a business presence. His background includes that of merchant, property owner, and university and college instructor and lecturer. He's a graduate of the University of Southern California, School of Commerce, and he holds a Master in Management and MBA degrees. In addition, he was a consultant with McDonnell Douglas in Finland, Yugoslavia, Austria, and Hungary. He is president of Schultz Companies, established in 1924, and founding and senior partner of Schultz Financial Services. Mr. Hinton is president and chief executive officer of the Customer Relations Institute in San Diego, California. He has been an advisor for more than 400 corporations, associations, and government agencies in the U.S. and abroad, with his specialization being in leadership and total quality management. He has worked in major projects such as the new Otani Hotels of Japan, Isuzu Truck of America, and Union Bank. Mr. Hinton is the author of the well-known books The Spirit of Service and Customer-Focused Quality, What to Do on Monday Morning. Welcome. Let us begin with an introductory question. Today, we hear a lot about the strategy of creating leadership academies in our organizations in order to maximize the potential of our human resources. How exactly do these academies work, and what is so innovative about them? Is this strategy of developing leadership applicable in both the private and public sectors? And does it take into account the important influence of cultural factors in different countries? Mr. Hinton.
Well, Armando, I think that the creation of academic institutions, that is, corporate universities, it's unique because every industry, especially now that we're global, is so specific and so unique. And I think what companies are trying to do is address the specific educational needs of their employees. I think it's also a very fine way to grow professionalism among the staff. And frankly, as people come into the workplace, the skills that they need today are changing so dramatically that it's important to have a university on the within the corporation. And I think that's the reason that so many large companies are going with the university structure. And I think Stan could address the cultural aspect.
Yes, actually, the cultural differences and the differences in customs, this is a must to convey to the worker and to the leader and the manager today. And not only the differences in countries, but the differences in regions within countries. I can think of many personal experiences in traveling throughout Europe and Central and South America, where it was vital that I myself was aware of these cultural differences. They're essential to be stressed.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz, and thank you, Mr. Hinton. Let's start now with our first module, where Mr. Stan Schultz will explain how global leadership is key in today's successful organizations.
Thank you. I am once again pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you, particularly on this fascinating, extremely important topic. Someone has said that the only constant thing in our world today is change. As changes take place and as our world becomes smaller and smaller with the electronic revolution now taking place with great intensity, accountability becomes more and more important, not only for moral and ethical reasons, but because corporations, their managers, and their individual workers are under an ever-brightening, ever-increasing spotlight for their actions. It is as if one is in a fishbowl. There is no place to hide anymore. One can't sweep mistakes or errors in judgment under the rug, or place blame on society, another organization, or another coworker should something go wrong. I am perhaps a cynic, but I really believe that politicians, corporate executives, business managers, and individuals are being inspired to new levels of integrity and unselfishness and blame-taking because they know deep down that they are probably going to get caught for their errors of omission, another word for mistakes, lack of consideration for the working conditions of their employees, environmental hazards created by their companies in the manufacturing processes or otherwise, by the unlimited exposure their work and actions can now receive. But shouldn't the preceding not be the major factor in assuming responsibility and being accountable for our actions? Of course. There is, therefore, a global leadership challenge in our workplace, and that we want to succeed and survive in the emerging global marketplace. Let's deal with a few definitions, so we are, to use a popular present-day expression, on the same page. From my previous presentations, I define globalization and, in turn, global economic integration. The globalization of our daily lives is evident everywhere, from the products we buy and use to the attention paid to exchange rate movements in the morning newspaper. Globalization is not simply a matter of increased trade. We see it also in the worldwide markets for currencies and credit, in the pattern of production, and in the flow of information and technology. At the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, New ideas took decades to filter even across Europe. Now they spread around the world at the speed of light. Let's now define accountability, or what I believe its synonym is, responsibility. We know that accountability is the state of being accountable, responsible, or more strongly, liable. I humbly add the word answerable. Webster's dictionary tells us that an account is an assignment of reasons, explanations by a recital of particular transactions given by a person in an employment or to a superior, sometimes implying responsibility, an answering for conduct, a report of an account of activities. I like what one of my favorite U.S. presidents of 50 years ago, Harry S. Truman, was quoted as saying, "The buck stops here." What is meant, of course, by this popular U.S. slang expression or colloquialism is to pass the blame or responsibility on to another, as in passing the buck. When you are president of a country, there's nowhere else to pass the blame, as Truman saw it. It stopped at his desk. This should now be the case in the workplace, not only for the president of the corporation, educational institution, or service organization, but for each individual manager and for each individual in the team that must make up the successful organization of today. With authority goes responsibility. They go hand in hand. Isn't this what we tell our children when they want more freedom, when they want to drive an automobile, to date, or go out on their own? We tell them, okay, but what you must accept is that with this freedom, which gives you the authority to act on your own volition, is the responsibility and accountability that goes with it. If you have an accident, make a serious misjudgment of any kind, it is you, no one else, that is responsible. I would like to digress for a few minutes to illustrate what is now happening in the world, not just the world of business or organizations, but in the political, domestic, and international scene as well. Here is a recent issue of a San Diego newspaper, the Union Tribune. There are 4 major stories on the front page. Each one deals with accountability. Story number 1, Customs Chief resigning. Why? Allegations of customs corruption. Who was accountable? He was. He didn't blame others for his inability to correct the problems. He is quoted as saying, "I have done the very best job I could." Did he pass the buck? No. Story number 2, tobacco firms may make deal to settle suits. The subheading was industry cost could exceed $250 billion. The tobacco companies, after years of denial, now are willing to discuss the nicotine addiction factor and health debilitating causes of tobacco. They are becoming accountable. Story number 3, Israeli police urge Netanyahu indictment. This alleged influence peddling scandal is calling the prime minister of this country accountable. He is being urged to step down, and early elections to replace him may be held. Story number 4, Gingrich expected to pay entire $300,000 penalty himself. Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich, decided yesterday to pay his entire ethics penalty from personal funds and will take out a loan to do so. What underlies these 4 stories? Being accountable, or being made to become accountable for one's actions. Accountability can differ geographically, despite globalization. There is reason to believe that Western Hemisphere CEOs have significantly more accountability for strategies and financial results than their European and Japanese counterparts. In the United Kingdom, large corporations frequently have outside chairmen of their boards who have significant authority. Power is distributed more evenly among top executives abroad, where the CEO may be the first among equals rather than shouldering sole responsibility for the fate of millions of stockholders, employees, suppliers, and customers. The international CEO's accountability, especially in Japan and Germany, is further diluted by the interlocking relationships among companies, advantages, and risks. The reality of modern communication is actually shaping what leaders must be, and the reality demands that leaders transcend technique. The world of communications has changed so vastly so that much of communication theory, with its traditionally technical focus, is simply out of date. The time in which messages must be communicated, for example, has been remarkably compressed. A soundbite in previous times normally lasted 48 seconds, where today's network news soundbite averages 7 seconds. It's no secret that today's leader must get messages out fast. Compressed time is just one aspect of change. There are many others. With the press and analysts schooled in reading every signal of management behavior, from the size of a picture in an annual report to the invitation list for a global teleconference, today's leader must grasp modern ritual and visual idioms and images, learning them instinctively and not getting caught up in details. In addition, electronic databases are pulsing through modems everywhere. Leaders must assume that their adversaries have access to extraordinary information and research. With satellite uplinks and fax machines poised to report a manager's every move, no leader has the luxury of creating a purely localized message for one audience in a single factory or corner of the globe. As opinion surveying and high-speed computing are developing at astonishing levels, leaders everywhere have extraordinary opportunities to evaluate their options and to pre-test their initiatives. With the advent of email, internet, and websites, even more opportunities exist to reach out through these new media. We are seeing very sophisticated mailing lists now, to be even more complex in the future. Mailing, by the way, is really a misnomer today. It implies the sluggish shoveling of third-class drop pieces into mailboxes. We are talking instead about immediate electronic access to influence lists. Accountability is and will be tested even more in the future. Accountability is more difficult now that we have organizations that are more geographically dispersed. Team accountability is another factor. Today, teamwork means more to success within an organization than ever before. Therefore, we must not ignore the importance of team accountability. Team leaders are needed in all spheres of organizational life. This includes marketing, research and development, engineering, production, quality assurance, information systems, human resources, accounting and finance, and all the rest. It also includes first-level management, middle-level management, and upper-level management. The need for team leaders is not limited to particular spheres. One of the salient characteristics of a successful team is assumed responsibility. In an unproductive team, each member has a clearly defined wall around his or her job responsibilities. Any requirement for action that does not fall within this wall is ignored. One frequently hears the age-old response, "Sorry, that's not my job." In the productive team, each member has a defined job, but in addition has a commitment to do anything that needs doing. The walls surrounding the various jobs are pliable, and the greater commitment is to do whatever is necessary to achieve the group goals. All members of the team have internalized the catchword or catchphrase, "If something needs doing, then see to it that it gets done." In a sense, members of a team are accountable for the actions of the team. Unproductive team members must be recognized and made productive through training, retraining, and motivation, or replaced. Many managers would agree that the effectiveness of their organizations would be at least doubled if they could discover how to tap the unrealized potential present in their human resources. What these managers are concerned about is human motivation. They are seeking ways to better motivate people. They want to tap this unrealized potential. I have personal experiences in my consulting career in the area of motivation. I find the key word in motivating another is recognition. Nothing can kill the desire of a worker to perform at optimum more than lack of recognition. My personal experience has been repeatedly that a manager has achieved a great deal when he's able to motivate one other person. When it comes to making a place run, motivation is everything. You might be able to do the work of two people, but you can't be two people. Instead, you have to inspire the next person down the line and get him to inspire his people. Let's talk again about change. Change is often perceived as a perplexing jungle that many people, organizations, and even whole societies enter only to become entangled in the undergrowth of confusion and dysfunction. The future promises enormous accelerating change, and only those organizations which effectively handle such change, both externally and internally, will prosper in the decade ahead. This variable alone will weed out the weak from the strong. As with other success factors, managers and leaders deal with change quite differently. Managers, especially in management-dominated organizations, strive continually to achieve stability in their organizations. In the world of constant and rapid change, however, stability can quickly turn into stagnation. Leaders, on the other hand, love to introduce change into their organizations, constantly creating new directions, agendas, and priorities that, particularly in leadership-driven organizations, can create a state of continual crisis. The conflict-oriented organization attempts to balance stability and crisis by pitting managers against leaders, with the vacillation-prone organization deliberately shifting between the two. Only in balanced and integrated organizations do managers and leaders combine in such a way as to permit stability and crisis to flow into one another smoothly and productively. Security-minded managers naturally prefer stability over crisis, because to a manager's mind, the stable state with its accompanying order, Discipline, regimen, and predictable performance represents the ideal. Stability doesn't necessarily imply stagnation or the inability to change, however. Rather, it means calm and reasoned progress through change. During times of crisis, the manager thinks hardest about somehow reestablishing stability. Leaders prefer crisis over stability. In the turmoil that surrounds a crisis, the leader feels heartened that things are happening. For the leader's soul, crisis doesn't mean chaos, but rather a breakthrough close at hand. During times of stability, a leader grows bored, restless for the next crisis that will propel the organization to new heights. If no crisis erupts, the leader will most likely create one. Let's explore failure. Everyone likes to think only of success, but let's talk about how managers, as leaders, handle failure. A failure in program is just that, a failure in program. Your concept, your presentation, may have to go back to the drawing board. You may need to do more research, gather more supporters, clarify your objectives. The timing may be wrong, or your idea may just have to be filed away with other future improvement projects. As Shakespeare wrote in Macbeth, troubles seem to come not as single spies, but in battalions. It can be that you are wrong if a project fails. If so, like Bobby Fischer, the chess genius, regard defeat as a fluke. Be accountable. Admit your error and see what you can do to make sure it never happens again. You can expect problems at certain times. When you start a new program, modify a production model, change suppliers, renovate a building, find yourself in the middle of a flu epidemic or a holiday period. You can alleviate some pain through planning and scheduling. You can't personally make the products, the project, or the people perfect. When disaster strikes, you will just have to stop and develop short-term solutions. Sometimes there is nothing you can do. Your proposal can be stymied in committee by someone with no knowledge of the type of work you do. Perspective helps. Collaboration is the quality solution. However, it takes time and requires the cooperation and willingness of others. Compromise can be less than you deserve, but the best you can do under the circumstances. My conclusion is as follows. Exceptional organizations achieve greatness by focusing their strategies, unifying their cultures, aligning their strategies and cultures to exploit change, and empowering their people toward enduring effectiveness and results. When they succeed in doing so, they benefit from satisfied customers, fulfilled employees, capable management teams, rewarded shareholders, contented communities, and exceptional bottom-line results. While many organizations can develop strategic focus, cultural unity, dynamic adaptation to change, maximum individual effectiveness, and spectacular results for a brief period of time, it takes an empowered management leadership environment to perpetuate these capabilities far into the future. Such an environment taps the natural tension between managers and leaders, bringing about a binding together of all these major elements. I strongly believe we will need such balanced and integrated environments to guide our organizations into the next century. To create such empowered environments and organizations, managers and leaders need not betray or ignore their unique talents and abilities, but they must learn to orchestrate every different perspective and orientation along the management continuum into a harmonious symphony. Even an entrenched manager or leader can achieve a more balanced and integrated organization, provided he or she takes the time to value and deploy a diverse range of management leadership skills. In summary, managers and leaders approach change differently. Keep in mind, there is a need to blend the two orientations together in a balanced and integrated way. Remember, in the best organizations, managers and leaders work side by side, combining constant change with changelessness to produce the best environment for success. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Let's begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that you only make one question per phone call and that these questions are as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which now appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. We welcome the first participant from Argentina. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mario González, and I'm calling from the Banco del Suquía from the city of Córdoba. And the question is the following. Today we're saying that a world-class organization that is oriented towards continued permanent education counts with a strategic capital, which is the human intelligence that this company has. How can we face this knowledge leadership within a company?
Well, Senor Gonzalez, first of all, I'd like to state that Cordoba is a beautiful city, which I had the pleasure of visiting. One of the greatest assets we have, of course, in any organization are the people that make up the organization. And it is very, very important, particularly in today's atmosphere for change, that the people unify themselves and work together as a team, as I believe I covered in my previous remarks. This should be an ongoing, constant enterprise within the company. And again, I stress recognition is the key word. Recognize your workers, recognize your managers at all levels for their performance in order to make that performance more efficient and more beneficial to the organization.
And from Argentina, we now go to Brazil. We greet our participants in Key TV Comunicaciones, Rio de Janeiro. Welcome. Good afternoon. I would like to say that the global leadership strategies and the small and medium companies in countries such as Brazil, Mexico, or Argentina